Hey, bald and balding peeps. Just wanted to say before this episode that I apologize for the way I sound on this episode. There was an error when it was converting, and that's why I sound like I'm in a tunnel, unfortunately, or kind of robotic. But thank you for understanding and just figured I would let you know what was going on with my funny voice. Enjoy the episode.
Those bald chicks are here to slay. Stop what you're doing, plug in and play. Those bald chicks will make your day. So stop what you're doing and say, those bald chicks.
Welcome back to Those Bald Chicks, your favorite alopecia podcast. I'm Paige, and I'm here with the amazing CEO of Baldy Lox Boutique, Stephanie Barber. She started her business at 20 years old, where she collaborated with famous fashion brands and wig companies, redefining beauty standards alongside raising hair loss awareness. As an alopecian who knows how hair loss can be, as well as having incredible knowledge of the wig business, it was the perfect match for her to start her business. She's here to take us through her hair loss journey and how Baldy Lox came to be. So welcome, Steph.
Hi, I just want to say thank you so much for having me on your podcast. This is amazing. It really is an honor. So thank you so much.
Oh, that makes me so happy. It's an honor to meet you and have you on as well. I mean, I've been following your business for a couple years now, and I'm like, this woman is incredible. So I was so excited to talk to you. Yeah. So
yeah,
if you
absolutely.
if you want to kick it off and just talk about your hair loss to date, and then we'll just go from there.
Yeah, sure. Okay, gosh, right. Where do I begin? Gosh, losing hair is I could be here for hours. So my hair started thinning when I was in secondary school or high school, and my mum noticed it, but she didn't tell me about it because I think spoken to her now about it. She was like, I just didn't want to worry you. I did notice, but I didn't, of course, at that age, you're very much into like your looks, like do I look okay? You want to be a part of like that kind of group of silly stuff you do when you're kids. But she noticed, but she was a bit worried. But I think what happened with me is I think it has to be stress induced with me, because unfortunately my dad passed away when I was in high school or secondary school.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was a really, really tough time, I think, for all of us, like the whole family. It really flipped us over. And it was at a time, when I was in year 11, which was the last year of secondary school, where, of course, you got all your GCSEs, you got everything going on, which I struggled massively, and as a result, I did well in like drama, dance, but anything academic wise, like maths, or it wasn't great whatsoever. And it was a really, really difficult time. So from that happening, that's when my hair started coming out so much, where I kind of noticed some weird things going on. And as a kid, growing up, I was always very driven. I always had goals. That I was very heavily into dancing, which, I would do every single day, every break time, lunchtime. Anybody who's watching this, who remembers me from Kevix, where I'm at. I'm at the dance studio. And it was like literally my life, dance at that point. And I was so well driven, to which, I competed in 2 UK championships, which amazingly, and I won those 2 UK championships, which then qualified me into the world championships in dance, which then I came third. So I was very driven. And then I kind of got into music, and I used to sing. I released an EP, And the reason why I'm saying this is because my dad was very much, of course, my mum, love my mum to bits. She's always been there for us. But my dad was very much like the one. He would drive me to these places. He would ring up. He would go through. Well, kids won't know this now, but in the UK, you used to have yellow pages, which is a big book where you have all of like any phone number that you need. And he would literally go through every page trying to figure out, right, where can we get Steph here? He was always there. So obviously with him passing, it was just a very weird time for me. And that's what I mean. It totally flipped us. So yeah, that's when my hair really started, falling out. And then with my dad passing, I dropped out of college as well. It was really, really hard for me. Yeah. And then I started going into work, helping my mum, sisters and stuff, pay my way as you do.
Yeah.
And then I had my daughter, I had my daughter at 18. So that's still quite young. So
it
was a very weird time. Like even looking back now, it's like, everything just doesn't make sense. It was all very much like, I can only describe it as if you're like underwater. Like, it was so weird.
It was so much at once. And you were probably like, what is going on?
Absolutely. And not only that as well, like my dad had 9 brothers and sisters, and all of them passed away since it was 2001 to, I believe, until 2008. Literally, I think only one of my aunties was still alive. Now, unfortunately, she's passed. Yeah, so we had a lot of funerals. I remember that as a kid. So, but then again, like sometimes I think, I believe it has to be stress induced, surely. But then, you know, when my dad, whenever he felt really stressed out, I would see he would have bald patches at the back of his head. And my nana, like she would always style her hair in such a way to cover. So I'm thinking, is it hereditary or is it? I mean, we don't know, do we?
Is it not? No, there's no answers. That's why it's so weird. We don't know where to turn and see like where we got it.
Exactly. And then you think, right, so, well, the next person to turn to is your GP or some medical professional. And that's what I did. And I think how old was I? It was after having my daughter. And I remember the day I was there, I spoke to the doctor and he said to me, he goes, Steph, I can only describe it as if, think of like men when they hit a certain point in their life. You know, when they start to lose hair, that's what you have. And I was absolutely horrified.
You what?
I know. I didn't know anything about alopecia whatsoever. And I suppose you don't, if you haven't experienced it or you don't know anybody who has, you don't really know much about it, which is why I try and raise as much awareness and educate people as possible.
You don't even know like to search that. Like if you get that diagnosis, you're just like, okay, and you kind of just go, well, I guess I just have to roll with this, and then you don't do any other research really because you're like, well, I guess this is what it is. So yeah, I didn't know about alopecia either.
No. And then when you do search hair loss, 9 times out of 10, it's the big C word. And even at that point, I didn't realize, because I thought, oh my God, do I have cancer? And this might sound silly, but I can only describe it how I was at that point because I didn't know much about, you know, cancer. I thought it was the cancer itself that makes people lose hair, but in fact, it's the treatment. So I didn't know that either. So I was like, my God, what's wrong with me? That it was so, I can only describe it like I wanted the world to swallow me up. I was like, my dad's passed away. I literally have no direction at that point in my life, you know, no music, no dance, nothing. And when things like that just stop, you question, you know, and that's when then I had issues with my mental health. Like it was a knock on, like a dominoes effect. It was like that happened, then that happened, then that happened, and it was like, what is going on?
So much for someone so young too.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It was really hard. It was really, and it was hard for us all. Like we all kind of, you know, we dealt with it in our own way. And still to this day, you know, you never forget anything tragic like that in your life, do you? You just try to kind of get on with it. You know, you get on with life. But there are times when like, even like with the whole Baldy Lox Boutique, there are times where I wish that my dad was here.
Yeah,
because I know he would be really proud, and it's just unfortunate. Even like, you know, the birth of my daughter, like things like that. Like she's obviously never met him, so there's things that you think about naturally, you know, where it's just rubbish.
And I feel like without any answers besides what your GP told you, okay, so where do I go from here? Like,
exactly.
What is just what I have to deal with? Was there any treatment back then when you were young? Like,
well, he kind of said, look, you've got 2 options. He goes, either you go and get like a shampoo that might help, you know, grow your hair back. I was like, right. Or he goes, or I can refer you to a dermatologist. So I was like, well, obviously referring me to a dermatologist would be the better option, because how he described it, it was just very like, you know, when you just know like someone doesn't have any like understanding that you have a young person in your room right now, and you've just told them that they, you know, the process of how some men lose their hair. I'm a female. Like,
absolutely.
What?
Right.
You know, like,
where's the empathy there? Where's the, how are you feeling? Are you okay with this information? Like,
exactly. And you know what? I always kick myself for this, because he did refer me, but I just had my head in the sand because I was like, I'm too scared. Like, what if they tell me there's something wrong with me? And I was really worried because obviously in my head I'm thinking, right, well, my dad's passed away, all my uncles and almost all of my aunties have all, is there something wrong with me, you know? So I didn't want to go and see, I didn't even know what a dermatologist was. Like, you know, it's just, so, and then what I did is my fiance now, who I have to say has been so incredibly supportive. Like, he's been there when I've had hair, and then when my hair started falling out. Like, I had a moment in my life where the little hair that I had left had a breakdown, because I was like, what is the absolute point of me even having this hair? Like, I woke up one morning and I was in tears, but at the same time, my daughter was young, so I had to try, and I don't want her to see me like that. So even though I was dying inside, I was like, come into the bathroom with me. And I just got literally the bluntest razor and just shaved my head. But I wanted to do it in front of her because I didn't want her to be shocked at seeing mum with hair and mum with no hair. But by easing her into it, I kind of made it a little bit of like a joke. Like, so I, you know, just shaved the crown part of my head, and I had these these wispy hairs. And you know what? My daughter is so like me. Like, her personality and humor is so funny. So, and I knew she would laugh at it, and she did. So it was never a shock with her. But then, I shaved my head, and I think it's the best thing I ever did, to be honest with you.
Every single person that has alopecia or hair loss in general that I've met, talked to, has said that. It was the best decision I ever made, because right after it was like, okay, now I don't have to look at the hair that's still growing back. And every single person says that.
Yeah. And it's so true. And the thing is, like, everyone has their own way of dealing with things. And, you know, I appreciate that. And just because I've shaved my head doesn't necessarily mean you have to do that, because you might find that, oh gosh, I've shaved my head, maybe that was a bad idea. It's different for people. But for me, you know, it was like, it was a sigh of relief kind of thing. It was like, okay, this is it now. You know, there was absolutely no point of me even holding on to that hair. And it was a way of me gaining back control. I just, you know, when you're losing your hair and every day you look in that mirror and you're like, oh, you know, and I thought, I'm just going to shave it. There's absolutely no point. And I did.
Almost like you're holding on to like the last bit of hope, like maybe my hair will come back. So I'll just hold on to that. And you shave that rest off, because mine was the same. I started to cut my hair shorter and shorter and shorter to get used to having shorter hair. And then it became to the point where my extensions weren't thick enough and my hair wasn't thick enough to blend well. I don't know what to do anymore. When I shaved it, I was like, it was almost like all this weight just lifted off me and I could breathe.
That's so true. And that's how I felt, because like, before I did that, my way of hiding things, and that was before I really was introduced to the world of wigs. I used to always dye my hair black. My hair was literally the colour, you know, of what you're wearing now. But what I used to do is I used to just keep that hair dye on just longer than what you're supposed to, in the hopes that it would also dye my skin, my scalp. And what that did, it just made my hair look fuller. And it worked some points, but then when, you know, the seasons got a little bit warmer and that sun is gazing right down on your head, and I remember my friend looking at me like, and she said, why is your head shiny? And for me, she didn't know. I was so devastated. I was like, oh my God, you can see it. You can see, you know, so that was my way of kind of, I suppose, covering things up. But, you know, I took that plunge, I shaved it, and, you know, it's the best thing. Like I said, the best thing I've ever done.
Absolutely love that. So in regards to hair loss, I'm going to ask you a couple questions because I'm interested in what your answer is going to be. What was or currently is the hardest hurdle to jump when it came or comes to your hair loss currently?
Oh, well, I mean, a lot of people would find this quite hilarious. But going out in public, even though I'm very, you know, anybody can see my Instagram, it's literally open for the world to see. But for me to actually physically go out in public, it's definitely more personal, because you're seeing whoever's looking at you or whoever's walking past you, which 9 times out of 10 probably don't care. But it's you, isn't it? And you're in that moment. So for me, you know, going out in public, bold. However, though, I have recently gotten better to the point where I feel like now, and also like with Baldy Lox Boutique, I feel it's my duty as well and my responsibility. If I'm pushing out this awareness, I feel like but why am I not going out and educate people that way, So because I'm now 30 as well, when you get a bit older, your brain, you become a little bit more wiser with things, and
you're like literally taking the words out of my mouth, because I'm right there with you. I don't feel that comfortable fully yet to go out with my patchy shaved head, but like I'm 31 now. I just turned 31 in June, and I'm like, but I can do this because I know every person I see will not remember me, and if they do, exactly. I will remember them.
Exactly. No, that's so true. That is really, really true. And for me as well, like even if I was to get dressed up, for example, I always immediately go, right, what wig am I going to wear? Rather than, or should I just rock it with no wig? Now that my brain is like, do I need to be wearing a wig? And that's why I feel it's my responsibility also to kind of vocalize this, is that yes, I make wigs, but it's essential for people to know that you are beautiful without, which is why I've got the, to enhance, not define. It doesn't define you. I feel that's really important. And I feel like as a woman with a hair loss condition, it's important that I vocalize that as much as possible, because with wigs, I've had a bit of a love and hate relationship with wigs. Well, very much so in the past. And what I mean by that is I really struggled with my identity. And I don't know if anybody could kind of relate, if you've got like a vast range of like different hair colors, styles, cuts, or what have you. So going through that, I would be blonde one day, I would be red the next, I would be short, I would be black, I would be this and that, right? It kind of occurred to me when my daughter would draw pictures of the family. She asked me a question. She goes, Mom, so what hair am I going to give you today in this picture? Should I do you blonde? Or what about that brunette wig that you wear? Or should I just do you bold? And it was that moment, really,
right,
when that kind of like love and hate kind of stopped, because I said to her, draw me bold. That's me. I'm bold. So how I see it now is like my identity is I am a bold woman who likes to wear wigs.
Yeah.
And for me, that was a major thing for me to kind of come to terms with, because if you're walking down the street and someone looks familiar and they've got dark hair, you're like, oh, is that Steph? Oh yeah, that's Steph. Whereas I'll be walking down the street, blonde hair, I'll wave at whoever's across the road and they would have to second guess, like, who is that?
Yeah.
Me.
Yeah, just different color.
Yeah, exactly. So I would say that was one of the biggest hurdles dealing with the hair loss situation, was that. And that was when I was like kind of reviewing wigs prior to actually having Baldy Lox Boutique. But beforehand, when I was online, I would try and be like, raise as much awareness as possible, but also like review wigs from other companies. So I would have like a really nice collection of wigs where I just chop and change whenever I felt like it. Yeah. But with that came like a bit of an identity crisis. I was like, who am I?
Even like throughout the past of my 10, 11 years that I've had alopecia, I sometimes have put on a wig where I'm like, ooh, this doesn't look like me. I don't feel like myself in this. I don't know if I could walk out the door like this. It doesn't feel like my hair, because you're used to your hair. I mean, you were like 18, so you knew what it was like to have hair. And see yourself with your own hair on your own head, that's what it looked like in your brain. So got into wigs, it was almost like, wait, this doesn't look like my head. That was my crisis. I was like, people are going to know that this is a wig right here. They're going to see it.
Yeah.
And I had a hard time getting over that.
Yeah. No, I can absolutely relate. Like, so when did you lose your hair then? Were you quite young?
I was 21. I was in college.
Wow.
I know. I couldn't believe it. I thought it was stress too, which I think it is stress, because it was like study up until just so much anxiety and everything going on. I was used to 21 years having this long, beautiful blonde. And I was like, my hair is getting thinner, but I wear extensions. So I'm like, oh, it could be just trying to like rip off my hair a little bit. Maybe I'll stop in extensions.
Yeah.
And then it just wouldn't grow thicker. Oh, it totally was because I dyed my hair. I bleached my hair most of my life. Yeah. Oh, okay, I'll stop doing that. So it was like denial after denial. And then one of my friends was French braiding my hair and said, you have a bald spot on your head. And I was like, what? And she was like, you have a bald spot on your head. Did you know that? And I'm like, oh, don't tell me that. Don't tell me those things. Went to the hair salon because I wanted to get my highlights redone. same thing. You have a bald spot on your head. Have you gone to see a dermatologist? You could have alopecia. And I was like, wait, slow down. What?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on? Why are you telling me all this so fast? What is alopecia?
Yeah.
Like, I didn't even know what any of it was. So to be 21, like an adult in college, that was a lot.
Oh my gosh. No, I can absolutely imagine. Like you said, you've experienced having hair. And that's another thing that I miss is feeling the wind through your hair.
Yes.
You know, like as amazing wigs are, you don't get that feeling, unfortunately. Or I used to love like my hair being played with. Like I loved that.
And how it would like tickle you and like you're braiding. Oh, all of that. The braiding your hair, brushing it. Oh.
Loved it so much. And so that's something that I'm never going to get back ever. But it is a really, really difficult process to go through. And especially when you don't know anything about it, you know, and like a lot of people say, yeah, but it's just hair. But it's more than that. Like
it's your identity. It's who you remember being. It's
exactly. Yeah. But I have to say though, the positives though of hair loss is the fact that you can literally try any hairstyle. And I love that.
Yes.
Literally. And how convenient it is as well. Like you might have an event, you know, work, normal sort of day-to-day thing where, gosh, I've got to get up early in the morning, but you don't have to worry about your hair because you can do it the night before, just have it on the wig head, ready to go in the morning. And you know what, now, like I'm in this space where I'm happy, like the way that I don't have hair, you know, but the way I like and style my wigs and how I create them is the way that I always wished my hair would do.
1
million%.
Yeah.
And it would never work. I would see, and here's another thing as well, that I didn't really know much about hair, you know, at that time. So I was like, for example, I would think, how the hell does J-Lo have that hair when the week before she was something else? Like, it didn't click with me that she was probably wearing a wig, you know, or the way that
she have long hair like down to her stomach, and then the next day short, and then the next week blow out long again. You're sitting there like, what's going on here? What's this?
I know. Exactly. So I would definitely say the positive is that, yeah, it's not my hair, but the way I do it, I would never, ever be able to have my bio hair the way I do my wigs. And I love that. I love that I'm now finally able to achieve the hairstyles that I just adored seeing, which I could never create because my bio hair wasn't that thick anyway to start with. And the amount of times I would dye it as well, you know, I would feel like, I just want to be blonde, you know, but you'd go to the hairdresser and they'd look at your hair and they'd be like, yeah, is this dyed? I was like, yeah. And they're like, I'm not touching your hair.
Yep, absolutely.
I have to grow it out. I'm like, no. I'm like showing them videos like, yeah, but how is this stylist able to do this? Like,
yeah, right.
You know, and that's how, like now, like when I do wigs and colour and everything else, it's like there's a hell of a lot more involved than you think. So I can understand why they didn't want my hair.
Oh yeah, even with wigs, like, so okay, my first question is, how did you BaldyLox? Like, how did you think, you know what, I'm gonna get into wigs, this is my calling?
Right, I always get so excited about the thought of this because, right, so when I was introduced to the world of wigs, I can't explain or express the feeling of hope that I had. Now, I would look at hair loss, and thanks to good old Google, I had an ad in the corner, which so happened to be a wig. You know, it was a synthetic wig, but at the time when I didn't really know much about wigs, it looked so good and so natural.
Yeah.
So I rang my sister and I was like, oh my God, have you seen this? Like, and she was like, oh my God, this is amazing, Steph. She was like, I would buy one, but it was an eBay listing. So I was like, well, I don't know, it's synthetic. And in my mind, wigs was always like something you'd wear for a fancy dress. Like, it was never really like, I never thought it would be like an alternative, you know, for people. So I thought, rather than just splashing out on this money, I wanted to have a look and see if there was some reviews. So, of course, everyone goes to YouTube for reviews. So when I typed in wig or something, maybe, you know, with the link or what have you, all these suggestions came up. And at that moment, my mind was blown away. I came across video after video after video of all these wigs. And I'm like, what in the world? It was literally like a completely different world.
Yeah.
Completely.
You wouldn't have thought of it though. Like,
No.
same with me. I didn't know that there was a whole wig world out there before I got hair loss.
Yeah, exactly. So I became obsessed. I kid you not. I would literally be on my phone just watching these girls reviewing these wigs and how they're styling it, how they're laying the lace down. I even learned about, you know, the vocabulary world of wigs. So that is a completely separate thing. But yeah, there's all these bleach knots, 360 wig, HD lace, Swiss lace, French lace, Italian lace, silk tops, full lace. I was like, what is this? Like, so I, you know, did a bit of research, a bit of learning about, you know, what that all meant. But by doing so, I watched a lot of videos and I tried to basically have a look and see where they're getting these wigs from. So that's when I was first introduced to the world of wigs. Yeah. And I'll never forget that day, ever in my life will I ever forget that day. So I had a conversation with my fiance, you know, and he's been there and he's seen me at my hardest time, you know, and he's been there at my happiest. He sat me down and he was like, Steph, he goes, I think what you need to do is, I think you kind of need to network. I think you need to just maybe not like be open about your hair loss, but see if you can find people maybe of your age or someone who might have the same thing as you and just kind of open up with them. Because I live in the tiniest little town in the UK. And it's funny, everyone thinks I live in London and I don't. Like, anyone who doesn't live in the UK always kind of assume that I'm from London, but I'm not. But I live in a little town and there is literally nobody that I knew, you know, with a hair loss condition that was my age. So I felt very isolated. So he was like, well, why don't you just reach out and see how it goes with that? So I was like, okay. So I created my Instagram account and I started like following girls, like networking and, you know, and because I was so surrounded in that sort of world of social media where when I would open my phone, I'd see a girl with alopecia. I'd see, you know, maybe a different hair loss condition or whatever it was. And then it became normal, you know, for me. That was like,
seeing that in your feed constantly, you're like, oh, okay, now these are my people. This is my community. This is what I needed to see.
Exactly that. Which then gave me the confidence then to take that plunge and post a photo. My hair loss.
So wait, when was this? What year was this?
Oh gosh, I think we're talking 2018.
Okay.
I think. Yeah, and it, you know, and that was a big deal for me. Like I was like,
absolutely,
gosh, like, you know, and I was like, you know, when you get everything all ready, you got your caption ready and your hashtags, and then you got that post button. I was like, what do I do?
Should I just sit on this for a second? Yeah, right.
But I was like, I literally held my breath, went, all right, I've done it. Yeah. And I was amazed at how many people gravitated to that post. And I was that kind of person where, you know, I didn't have social media before. I didn't know what a story was, you know, I didn't know. So that was like, gosh, this is really strange to have all these people liking my photo and commenting and stuff. And I was like, oh my God, this is maybe much bigger than what I've been experienced. Actually, there's quite a lot of people here or, you know, on social media who might be doing the same thing as me, trying to reach out to people. So then I started, you know, then felt like I'm going to raise some more hair loss awareness and just post here, there, everywhere, you know, just basically reminding people that it's okay, that you're not on your own. And the number of women that would write to me, where I kid you not, like on an Instagram DM, I would receive like essays, and some of them I'd never forget. Some of them were like, oh my God, Steph, like you've changed my whole outlook of it all, where this person said I was almost going to commit suicide. Like that's how deep it was. And then I thought, right, well, this is way bigger than what I've been experienced, because you don't know who, you know, or you don't know what that person's situation is, you know, and they could be in a way worse situation than me. So then that made me feel so incredibly humbled to actually be maybe somebody to them, where they felt, oh my God, I feel safe. Like, this girl's been strong. It must have been quite hard for her to post, but it has given me hope.
Yeah.
And when I received those messages, I was like, right, I've got to do something here.
It almost like ignites something in you where you're
Yeah.
like, okay, now I'm over the whole anxiety of everybody knowing, like, this is so much bigger than I realized. Now it's a bigger mission than just me telling my story. That's why the podcast came to be too, because it was like, this isn't just about us. This isn't about our story. It's about reaching more people. It's about finding a community, giving an outlet to where you can ignite something in you when you hear stories like that. People reached out to me that had other illnesses, other sicknesses that made their hair fall out, or other stuff that said, oh my God, your post just completely changed my way of thinking. Like, oh, talk about emotional. Woo! That was like the biggest terrain that just hit me with emotions when that happened. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely grounds you. Like, it makes you think, okay, and I would never take away people's, I suppose I'm just talking for myself here. Like, I struggled a lot. You know, I experienced a lot of stress. My mental health at one point in my life, it was really low. It was at the bottom. And going through that process and then being in a position mentally to then post about it, to then have somebody reach out to you who's probably at that low where you were, but like you're holding their hand and you're like, it's okay. Like, you know, it's hard to explain. It really
so
is
hard to explain. I know.
Yeah. I would literally read these messages and I would cry. I always get emotional because there are people in our community that have committed suicide. And I feel like it's a huge thing, you know, the way society is, but I do think it's a very personal thing. Of course it is. And that's why I feel like as a brand like Baldy Lox Boutique, it's important, because there was a point where I felt, okay, I'm selling these or I'm making these wigs, you know, they're going up, people are buying them. And I feel like it's important for me to take responsibility that actually, although these wigs could, you know, bring you the confidence, which you well and truly deserve, but it's also important to love yourself for the person underneath the wig. And that's why I did the hair loss campaign. You know, I wanted to kind of touch on that, because I know how it feels. Like, if you're always wearing a wig and I've had people reach out and, you know, they wanted to buy a wig and, you know, they've said, like, literally nobody knows that I'm wearing a wig. You are, like, they said this to me, you are the only person that knows that I wear a wig. And that's when I felt like, right, I need to make sure that what I'm doing here is done in such a way that it kind of shines the light on hair loss. And do you know what I mean? Like, it is.
So when you posted those pictures, by the way, of you and those lovely ladies, I stared at them for a while because it was so wonderful to see such professional photos with women that have hair loss of all kinds, but like being so confident. And see, there's been so many people that have come on that said, seeing bald people with areata, universalis, whatever it is, in different ways of life, modeling, acting, business owners, whatever it is, seeing them in different ways of life is everything. So when you posted those pictures, that was a different way to see baldness, to see alopecia. It like took my breath away. Those pictures literally took my breath away. And even like when you go to your website and you see them, it's like, oh my God, like bald is beautiful, like literally. That's what it makes you feel. So when you did that, I was like, she's moving mountains for people with alopecia, and I love it.
Do you know what, that means so much, because there is something very missing within the beauty industry. And when you learn about hair loss, when you're going through it, there's a lot of videos that you come across, and the majority of those videos, in fact, I have not seen anything otherwise, but it's always a clinical approach. You know, it's like a doctor talking about hair loss, and, you know, have someone who has a hair loss condition just stood there. Like, I have not seen to this, like, in fact, ever, of taking an editorial approach, a beauty approach. In fact, celebrating the fact, okay, hair loss, it is difficult to go through, but let's shine on the beauty aspect of hair loss rather than taking that medical approach. I really wanted to make this a beauty campaign and to basically celebrate every individual person within this campaign and share and show the beauty.
Yeah.
Like these girls, we're all like pretty much the same age. We kind of, you know, we like to style wigs and, you know, stuff like that. And I just thought, how amazing would it be just to create something that, and like I said, rather than having a medical approach, why not make it like a beauty approach?
Yeah, absolutely. You literally knocked it out of the park.
Yeah,
like I couldn't believe it. It was so beautiful and such a wonderful thing that it almost like, no, it didn't almost, it absolutely, it boosted my confidence. Like it made me feel like, oh, yep, like this is totally what it is. Like it's nothing more than these pictures. Like everybody makes it out to seem like, oh, hair loss, you got to cover it up, blah, 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 this and that. But like you made it all about beauty, and you even incorporated wigs with it and how lovely wigs can, like you said, enhance your beauty. Like it was done so perfectly. Thank you. Yeah, it was incredible. I couldn't believe it. It was so wonderful. You.
And that's exactly why I wanted to do it. I want people to not only do I want to educate people, but it's like, just because you have no hair, for example, or your hair is thinning, it does not mean that you are not beautiful, you know. And I really wanted that to be the campaign, you know, like
the main focus. Absolutely.
Exactly. I was planning this. I mean, I kid you not, I had a spreadsheet, I had a PowerPoint, I knew even down to the finer details of like how the girls are going to have their toenails coloured, like everything was done in a way. And it took me a long time, you know, to get to this point of actually officially releasing it, because I wanted to make sure it was done correctly, but approaching it, you know, in a sensitive way that can be quite tricky for people. Well, of course, you know, me and you, we know, like hair loss is tricky. So I do wanted to make sure that it was approached correctly and accordingly. And I wanted just to, rather than having that medical approach, like I said, the beauty approach, the editorial, the high fashion, like you see all these models, like the gorgeous, like everything. I wanted that as like, okay, but here are the girls with alopecia or different types of alopecia as well. Not just all girls that are bald. There are girls, you know, with androgenic alopecia, you know, non-scarring, just all these different types of alopecia. And I felt like if I could, I would have had like a lot more girls involved. But I think for my first campaign, I thought, right, if I just, thank you. I thought if I just stick with just the 4, and then like, and even already, like I'm excited for the next one. So.
This ends part 1 of a 2-part episode with the lovely Stephanie Barber. In 2 weeks, the second part will drop, where she takes us through how Baldy Lox came to be and some lessons she learned along the way. Stay tuned. Bald Peck out.